so feel free to engage me at any time. So what are we covering today? Today's agenda, we'll talk about the role of the commission. We'll talk about, before we talk about money, we obviously need to talk about goals and setting, goal setting and budgeting. We will then talk about saving options. I will explain some of the investment instruments that's available. We will also talk about investment scams, how to complain, and of course, some of the free resources that we have available at the commission. So to get started, a little bit more about who we are at the TTSEC. I will play this video. Do let me know if you're hearing it.
Rachel, we're not hearing it, you know.
You're not hearing it?
No, so I think you could, if you are sharing, you all are hearing it?
I'm sharing this sound. I think I did click that.
Okay, so they are hearing, so go ahead.
Go ahead? Okay, good. Thanks.
Over the local securities industry, which is worth in excess of 297 billion TT dollars, representing 156% of GDP. This country is one of the largest primary markets in the region. Established by the Securities Industry Act of 1995, the TTSEC is an autonomous agency which has evolved through successive legislation to fulfill the crucial role of growing, regulating, and developing our local capital market and protecting you, the investor.
The Commission is a quasi-judicial body with quasi-legislative powers. Under the legislation, the board has the power to do all things and take all actions necessary to discharge its functions. In the exercise of its statutory powers, the board adheres strictly to the principles of good corporate governance and is guided in all its decisions, resolutions, and orders by its rules, bylaws, recommendations of board committees, and the staff of the TTSEC. The Commission is also required to advise the Minister of Finance on all matters relating to the securities industry.
Key to our effectiveness as regulator is our cadre of subject matter experts.
We recognize the importance of the securities industry in growing our economy and facilitating individual wealth creation. Thus, continuous growth and development are essential to ensuring that we stay on top of market trends and adapt to changes in the industry. Our staff is fully engaged and connected with all our stakeholders, committed to being accessible, amenable, and responsive in addressing the needs of the market, investors, and the public. Through our robust oversight of the securities market, we enable the TTSEC to effectively steer, safeguard, and advance the development of our local capital market, while protecting the interest of investors and potential investors.
Under the Securities Act Chapter 8302, the TTSEC provides protection to investors from unfair, improper, or fraudulent practices, foster fair and efficient securities markets, and confidence in the securities industry in Trinidad and Tobago, and to reduce systemic risk. But what does this mean exactly? All securities issued to the public must be registered with the TTSEC. This registration provides assurance to investors that the investments are legitimate, that is, they are not scams. All companies or individuals who deal in securities must be registered with the TTSEC. This is to ensure oversight and compliance with local securities laws. Complaint resolution, where investors may be aggrieved. The TTSEC can enforce penalties on registrants for breaches of local securities laws. And the TTSEC empowers investors through education on investing so they can make informed decisions. With membership in several international and regional bodies, including the International Organization of Securities Commissions, Caribbean Group of Securities Regulators, Inter-American Regional Committee, International Forum for Investor Education, and OECD International Network on Financial Education, the TTSEC benefits from knowledge and information sharing on emerging trends, industry standards, and best practices. The Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission, fulfilling our mandate to regulate, protect, and grow the local capital market. You invest, we protect, everyone benefits.
So I know that was a bit long, so let's break it down a little bit, okay? So as you all would have heard, we are the regulator of the local securities industry, and our mandate is to protect investors and promote the growth of the capital market. But how do we do that? We do that by making sure persons are registered. So before, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the presentation, before you invest, you should always verify that the person, the individual or investment is registered with the commission. And of course, we do investor education sessions like that. So let's talk a little bit about all the financial sector, right? It's made up of mainly 3 financial regulators. The first, as I mentioned, would be us. We're the SEC, and we would have been established by the Securities Act of 2012. Most of you all, and I like to do this in person as well because you can show your hands, most persons will be aware of the central bank, and they are the regulator for all the banking, insurance, and pensions. Credit union members, you know, there's also a cooperative credit union league. The Financial Intelligence Unit, so we consider all of these our sister regulators, the FIU. They're responsible for, if you have heard the term before, anti-money laundering or AML-CFT. And these are the 3 main financial regulators in the sector. So let's get straight into it. Financial goals. By a show of hands, how many of us have financial goals? Basically, it's a goal, a personal goal that you would have, but for it to be a financial goal, it requires money. I'm seeing some hands. Great. So we use this acronym, and most of you, or some of you may be aware of it. We say you should have SMART goals. And I will break that down a little bit. So if I ask persons, what is a goal? Some persons may say, well, I want to take my family, let's say, to Disney World, right? That's an example. Or, you know, as members of credit union, you may be saving up every year to go to a family vacation. But is it a SMART goal to just say, yeah, I want to take my family to Disney? No. You should say, you have to be specific, right? So SMART stands for the S, specific. What do you want to do? M is measurable. So how are you going to track it? Achievable. Make sure it's possible. We could want things, but is it achievable right now? So therefore, it needs to be realistic. And the main one is timely. When you set a time to your financial goal, it would help you reach there and you could plan for it. So a SMART goal, for example, let's use that same Disney World. You want to go on a family trip to Disney World in August 2026. We're in October 2025, so you have a little less than a year to start to work towards that, right? Whether it's you're taking a loan from the credit union or you're saving a bit of money every month towards that. Or you want to build a home, purchase a house. As a young person, that's something we all, you know, for me personally too, something you aspire for. But is it realistic right now at the age I'm at? So you want to purchase or build a home at age 45. So that's what we refer to as, you know, in terms of goal setting, you should practice the acronym of SMART goals. So we have the goal, but of course, something that we all know, and whether we use this or not. So let me ask this next question. How many of us, we all know what a budget is, right? It's a plan to show how much you're spending and saving each month. How many of us have a budget? Yes, many of us have a budget. I'm seeing the hands going up. So I will allow you to put down your hands now, and I'm going to ask a second question. How many of us, so we know what a budget is, we have a budget, but how many of us stick to that budget every month? By a show of hands, how many of us stick to it? A little less hands went up, but my own didn't even go up, right? And of course, we talk about emergency funds and things that happen, unforeseen circumstances that's happened. But that's why a budget is important, right? It helps us keep on track. There's a rule as well that you should save well, the recommended, I could say, because every individual, every stage you're at, income, etc., is different, right? But one of the rules, or I should say recommendations we make, is that you should start saving at least 10%. When you're able to, you could gradually increase that. Now, if you can't start to save 10%, save at least 5%, right? So 10% of your monthly salary, whether you take it out cash and put it in your credit union, put it in your bank, whatever investment product, start with 10%, and then you could always increase later on, right? Of course, try not to live beyond your means, try not to spend more than you actually have, right? Because then debt comes into play. Another thing as well is I did mention emergency funds. Emergency funds, again, the recommendation is that you should save at least 3 months of your salary. Now, we talk about achievable. That may be tough for many of us, including myself, right? But you never know what could happen. You know, the pandemic happened. Now, so many things are happening. You're at home. Of course, when your salary comes in, you have your budget. These unexpected things would happen. Your fridge could just stop working. You know, there's a virus going around. I know some of my friends as well with the kids are saying they have to take their children to the doctor tomorrow. That's a nice unexpected medical expense too that could pop up, and things that happen. This is life. So a budget definitely helps you. And of course, having an emergency fund is always recommended. You could work towards that 3 months, but at least a little bit put aside would help you in those unforeseen circumstances. So this is a scenario, meet Leanne, and we will go through it. And then in the chat, you could tell me what you would recommend to Leanne. Okay, so Leanne is age 32. She currently works at the Ministry of Education. She's a teacher. Her monthly salary is $10,000. She currently lives with her parents, but just took out a lease paying $3,000 a month. Her goal is to own her own home and travel the world. Expenses. Her rent is $3,000 a month. Gas. Even though she is now closer to work, she still has to pay $1,500 as she commutes between residences. Right? Her food bill is $2,000. Leisure entertainment is another $2,000. Her medical insurance is $600, and her saving is whatever is left at the end of the month. So just by using the comments, because I'm not sure if persons could be on mute, what advice will you give Leanne? I don't know if I could see Simone. I might need you to share. Let me see the chat.
Okay.
Okay, don't run, move back home. Stay with mom. Put aside savings first and reduce the leisure. Yeah, $2,000 is a bit much for the month, right? I agree. Find a cheaper apartment. Okay. Okay, great. Excellent. So thank you all so much for sharing. As you can see, every situation is different, but Leon definitely eat less and have less fun. Oh, well. You know, as we speak about, and especially when I do these sessions, the goal is not to enjoy life. We have one life to live, right? I'm not going to come in here, and do this presentation and say, save all your money, right? We do need to balance it, but I think the key is to balance, but also be, responsible. As I said, if you follow the rules and you put aside a little bit, you reduce the entertainment, especially if you're working towards a big financial goal. Agreed. You do not need to have all the fun now, but reduce some of that. So instead of, example, going movie town or IMAX all the time, you could just Netflix and chill at home. We all did it during the pandemic and it worked, right? So moving on, what are some of your saving options? Did I skip a step? Sorry. So actually, before we get into the saving options, let's talk about savings and investing. Is there a difference? Yes, there is, right? Savings, we say, tend to be short-term, right? So for short-term goals, and we say about 3 years or less. While investing is more for long-term goals. Accessible. Savings is easily accessible, well, tends to be, right? whether it's your bank account or credit union account. While investing, depending on the type of investment products, it may not easily be accessible for you to withdraw. The risk. Savings tends to be a bit more safe, while investing, and again, all types of investment instruments involve some form of risk. The savings, your return tends to be a bit lower, right? While investing have the potential to make higher returns. So very simple, right? That's the difference between the both. Now let's talk about the saving options. I know many of you, of course, may have bank accounts. Do you know what is the interest rates? And again, I'll just rephrase the chat right now in a bank account. Or someone was saying have a side hustle. Yes, I think in this time you definitely sometimes need to use your talents and to get extra income. Anyone know what is the interest rates right now in bank accounts? 0 is interest rates. Okay, I don't know if it's quite 0, but it's definitely 0 point something, right? Or about, yeah, 0.31. It's really low, but it's really 0 point something %. Now, of course, a bank account is still important. We all need it, right? Especially for your job or for having cards in order to make payments and credit cards and all of that. So it is needed. So I'm not saying anything wrong with bank accounts, but that would kind of lead me into investments, meaning there's not so much you could do on your bank accounts in terms of, obviously, we're not going to put it on our mattress, right? But it tends to be a lower amount, right? So what I do want to do, mention in terms of taking away your takeaway here with bank accounts, it is a good saving option, right? We all need a base to start, but there's something called the Deposit Insurance Corporation, and you could also Google it. It's referred to as the DIC. And what that means is all the banking institutions in Trinidad is insured up to $200,000. So what does that mean for the average person? If you have savings accounts in the bank, and God forbid something happened to the bank. So let's say you have, well, we're blessed, right? We have $250,000 in the bank, and something happened. You will only get up to $200,000. So why am I telling you this? It's good information, one, to know, and two, determine, don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's what we're trying to say here. Don't put all your life savings, all your money into just one financial institution. So that leads me to credit unions. Now, I could be silly and say, raise your hands. I know that everyone here is a member of the credit union, PSCU credit union. And I can say as a young person, when I now start working, I didn't, joining a credit union wasn't priority at the time. But my then manager actually encouraged me to join the credit union. And I could say it did pay off, because my first loan I took was actually from the Credit Union University Bank. And the main reason as well is that the interest rates tend to be for loans, were a bit lower than the bank. So, it was a good option. And something else I also encourage is that what the credit union encourages is, while you do have that loan, they tell you to always put something towards your shares. So yes, you have debt, but it also encourages savings. So definitely, I don't think I need to promote the use of credit unions that much here, but definitely a good option for those, right? And I know everyone here already have credit union accounts. And the next one is annuities and pension plans. So something here that I also want you to be aware of, and for those who, let's say right now in the webinar, that's in their 20s and now start working, you should always consider having a pension plan or your own personal annuity, right? Or retirement fund. Don't rely on just, if you're working, that one particular, because with inflation and all the things that's happening, the price of $100 10 years ago to now, it doesn't give you as much as it would have, right? So definitely something to consider. What I do want to mention with annuities and pension plans is that there's something called tax deferred. And many of us have these, we open up these accounts, but we're not aware of it. Tax deferred just means that it's that amount you get. So just to break it up, the statement you get when you look at it, what I do personally is I will take 25% out of that. And that is actually the money that you're working with, that you have in your account, right? Tax deferred just means at the time of maturity, it will be taxed. So it's a good way to, you won't be shocked when you reach, if your age was 60 or 55 that you set for your plan to mature, just know that it will be taxed at that time. I'm just looking at the chart really quickly. So, there are non-members here as well. Okay, well then I will encourage those who are not members of the credit union to definitely consider credit union. And I hope my own personal experience here would encourage you to join. There are many credit unions. Obviously, PSCU is hosting this, and I could say it as well that I am actually a member of the PSCU. So now that we cover savings, we're going to move on into investments. And I will try to break it down for you so you could really understand how you can make money from investing, right? So I did mention with the Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission. And when I refer to securities, it's a term that means it's a type of investment instrument, right? It has financial value and it can be used to create wealth. Securities can be traded or transferred. At the commission, we regulate three main classes of securities are registered with us, right? The first is equities, referred to as stocks and shares. I'm not sure if you all will be aware of that. Stocks and shares, for those who are members of credit union, the word shares may be familiar. The second investment instrument that's registered with us is debt instruments, more commonly referred to as bonds. And the third is mutual funds. So I'm going to explain each. So stocks and equities, how can you make money from investing in stocks and equities? Well, we have a local stock exchange, right? In our local stock market, there are many companies that is listed on the local markets. So let's do an example. And again, I'm just going to refer to the disclaimer here that the examples I'm using, I'm not promoting any particular stock, right? It's just for example, for educational purposes. So let's say the whole of Trinidad and Tobago, we love KFC. Everybody eats KFC on the weekends. You see the long lines. Now, you can use the charts. What company is... Now, KFC is not listed on a local stock market, but a company is. Do you all know the name of that company? And again, I'm just using this to show you the example. Prestige Holdings. Okay, good. Yes. So Prestige Holdings is listed in the local stock markets, and they would have KFC, TGI, Pizza Hut, and recently Starbucks, right? So let's assume Prestige Holdings as well. They declared, and they did declare millions in profits recently. So how do you make money investing in these stocks? Well, one, as the shareholder, when a company does well and make profits, you get paid in terms of dividends, right? So that's one way. So again, the company make a profit, a large profit. You as a shareholder, whether it's twice a year or annually, when they declare that profits, you will get dividends. Very simple. The second way you can make money from investing in stocks is, and I will use this example, you purchase stock, let's call it stock A, right? So stock A was worth $40 in 2010, right? You purchased 1,000 of that. So that's 1,000 by 40. Now, we're talking about goal setting and financial goals, right? Now you want to purchase that piece of land to build that house years later. So you decide to sell that 1,000 shares. Now the shares are set now, back then in 2010 was $40. But right now in 2025, that same share is worth $85 each. So if you were to sell that same 1,000 shares to put towards your land or your down payment, you would have made a capital gain of $45,000. And that's how people make money from investing in the local stock markets, right? Now, equally important, while you make a capital gain, of course, you can also make a capital loss. Now, what are some of the key takeaways here from investing in the local stock markets? Well, the rule of thumb, and if you read all the financial books, it would say buy low and sell when it's high. Just check the chat. Okay. So I actually have some examples here. Slide will change. Right. So I have some examples here, and this is from the stock exchange, our Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange website. So you could actually Google it and you could click on the equities and you will see all the list of companies, and there's a charts, and you could also do your own research as well and check it out, right? So we're just going to go through some of this because I feel there's a stigma where a lot of people think investing is for the rich, investing is for persons with financial degrees. But I just want to show when we go through this charts how, you know, each of us, any of us could look at it and you would understand the environment. So let's go through it. I'm not sure if you've seen the mouse, but just general observations, right? Let me just move this. Okay. So the price here would represent the price of the stock, right? And down here is the years. So over the period 2006, sorry, to 2025, the price, right now the price is around about $10 for a stock, right? So this is the period here. Any general observations? How many of y'all would purchase, just by looking at this, right? How many of y'all would purchase Angostura shares? Now again, Angostura, it's not just the rum and alcohol, right? They also have LLB Chill, which I actually love, and they have bitters. So I'm seeing some hands raising. So persons will purchase it, right? Because it's around $10. So maybe it's affordable and something to consider. Now let's look at So let's look a little bit, and you could use the chart here. At the end of every year, and I want to show how you could just figure this out as well, right? At the end of every year and at the beginning of every year, there's a spike. Anyone want to guess why at the beginning of every year and the end of every year, there is an increase? And you can use the chart. Excellent. Christmas and carnival time, because that's the one time Trinis we stock up and we make all those purchases. Yes. So you see, that was very good. That was a good example. So let's go again and look at another chart. So this is Massey Holdings. Now, again, Massey Holdings, it will mean that it's not just Massey Stores, right? It's Massey Finance, Massey Energy, Massey Motors, etc. So this is Massey Holdings. Again, just looking now, let's ignore this drop, right? I don't want to freak out anybody. So let's not look at this right now while I explain what this is, but no one lost any money, right? I'll explain what that is after. So Massey shares was around $100, right? Overall, they seem to be doing well. Yeah. Now let's just take a look around here. From 2020 to 2022, they went from almost $50 to $100. Anyone want to guess what happened here? What would have contributed to that? The price of a share almost doubled around that time. Good, so I'm seeing COVID, but I don't understand what does COVID have to do with Massey Holdings though, and that increase. So COVID is actually the correct answer, but why? Could anybody explain why? Toilet paper. Oh my gosh, the toilet paper sales, that was ridiculous. Everybody was rushing and stocking up. Between insurance and groceries, excellent. Bought a lot of equipment, supermarkets was doing good. Everyone was shopping. It was one of the companies that remain open throughout. Stores remain to be open. Oh my God, you all are very good. You all are well informed. This is such a good group. Excellent. Essential items. Yes, all excellent answers. And yes, during that time, and if I had Prestige, I would actually show you the opposite. If you look at their charts, the exact period of time their own went the other way and declined, because of course they were mainly restaurants, which would have suffered and closed during that time. But Massey Holdings, I made this joke because And someone said everyone was shopping. It's true. I used to joke and say Massey, between Massey and Superfarm, that was my social time to meet my friends because that was the only place you could have really gone, And Massey was smart too. While restaurants were closed, they were doing package items. They also had a pharmacy attached to it. So that definitely, excellent everyone who answered, would have contributed to that. Now, before I move on to the next slide, I just wanted to explain what this is. Now, this is something called a stock split, right? And it will happen around 2022. Now, what a stock split means is that no one lost money. So what they did was one Massey shares that was around $100 just meant that stockholders were not gotten 20 shares, right? So if you had one Massey share, is now worth 20 Massey shares, and it was valued at around $5. Now, why companies do a stock split? Well, one of the main reasons is that they may want to make the share or the stock more affordable to the public. Think about it. If you want to purchase, you have a little lump sum of money, so we've been saving money in our credit union or in our bank, and now we want to invest. $100 for one share may be a bit, maybe a lot for some persons. So again, it's now around $5. No shareholder that had stocks around that time would have lost any money. Just meant you have more shares, but the value would not have changed. Yeah. Any questions? I hope that I explained that well, and you understand more importantly. Okay. So the next one, before we move on, let me just check my time. In terms of the last graph here is First Citizens Bank. And the reason I put this here, well, before we get into it, just general observations. How do you think First Citizens is doing? Would you all invest in the stock? Right now, it looks like it's around a little under $40. I've seen some raised hands, yeah. We phrase it as the government bank, so we would consider it a safe type of stock to consider. Already have, oh, good, we have some investors here, yes. Good, some persons would have already purchased FCB shares. So something I wanted to mention with FCB, before it became listed, companies do something called an IPO. It's called Initial Public Offering. And I just want you to remember this term, right? IPO. So before a company becomes listed in local stock market, they will do an IPO and they will fix the price. So in FCB case, I think it was $22. The IPO was offered to many persons, well, to everybody in the entire population. And what they would do, they would advertise in the radio, they were on TV, the newspapers, and they had all the ads up for it. So they would have gotten bids for it, and persons would have purchased the IPO. Now, what happens when an IPO becomes listed? So when it actually became listed, and I don't have the first graph here, it was offered at $22, but when it hit the local stock market, it actually went up to about $40, and that's how a lot of persons make money, right? Generally, when IPOs are listed, it tends to be, the value tends to be lower, right? The market value tends to be a bit lower. So when it comes listed, it tends to be a bit higher when actually listed. So it's a good option to consider. You could look out, there may be several other IPOs coming out. So if you want to start investing in the local stock markets, an IPO may be a good option. Yeah. So if there are no questions, I'm going to move on to the other types of investment products. And Simonique could probably tell me as well if there are any questions, right? So moving on, our second option is bonds. Now, for those who are not aware of how a bond works, so bonds we consider more long-term type of investment products, right? For example, it's not all members of it. So for example, we have a lot of traffic recently. And we have a lot of traffic, I think, every day, but it's getting worse, right? So let's say the government wants to build, and I think that was any plan to build one of the flyovers in Piarco Airport there, at interchange. And they don't have the money to do that right now. So something the government could do, and I should mention bonds that could be either corporate or government bonds, right? So the government wants to do a huge project and they don't have the money to do that right now. So something that they do is that they would issue a bond. Now, a bond could be a 3-year bond, a 5-year bond, or a 10-year bond, right? Now, how does it work? The government actually had something called a NIF bond. And an example here is that the 5-year bond was paying out 4.5% interest, and I think it was twice a year. So going back to savings and linking it to investing. So we have $5,000, right? We save it, it's doing well. Some have it in the bank account. What was the bank account again? 0.7%. Let's take that now and put it into a bond. So you take your $5,000 and you invest it, let's say, in one of the government bonds. You're getting 4.5% interest. I actually think it's lower now, but we just use the example. 4.5% interest. So twice a year, you're getting 4.5% interest on that $5,000. Now, what happens at the end of the 5-year bond is that you get back your principal amount, right? So you get back your $5,000. So it's basically a safer type of investment product. You know, it's not fluctuating like the local stock markets. The money, as I said, instead of leaving it there, you put it towards a bond, you'll get a little more, right? And at the end, you get back your principal amount. So basically, that is how a bond works. Any questions? Okay, so we're going to move on to...
Rachel, there is one.
Sure.
How and when do you receive the money you invested in a company?
Like the stocks in particular?
Yes, it seems as though that person is speaking about stocks.
Okay, so I was going to explain a little bit afterwards when you start to invest. So actually, neither of us can actually invest in local stock markets. You need a registered broker-dealer and you have to open a brokerage account. Now, their platform is online now, but you have to go through a broker-dealer and they actually do the buying and selling on your behalf. And your brokerage account would actually have that, would have just like a normal account, you would see a statement and you would see, that's how you'll be able to get your statements. I'm not sure if that answered it. Any other question? No? Okay. So moving on to the third type of investment product is mutual funds. Now, by a show of hands, how many persons have mutual funds accounts? And I could extend it as well and say how many persons have, because this is the most, I think, the more popular one. How many persons have unit trust accounts? A little bit more hands went up. So unit trust is actually of type of, unit trusts actually have mutual funds, right? But locally, we have about 68 type of registered mutual funds across the country. Unit trust being one of the most popular ones, but there are about 68 registered mutual funds. Now, how does a mutual fund work? I am the fund manager, and we are going to create, let's say, a PSCU mutual fund, right? And I'm just using PSCU because they're hosting a webinar. So we're going to create a PSCU mutual fund. Or we could call it, I don't know, let's just go PSCU mutual fund, right? So I'm the fund manager, and what I will do is I will pool all the money. So I can't see the names here, but I could probably just go to chat. So Abby gives me $1,000. Karen gives me $500. Petal give me $800, etc. And what I will do is I will pool all that money together as the fund manager, and I will do the investing on your behalf. So I will choose some stocks, I will choose some bonds, and something that you should know is that every mutual fund have a document called a prospectus. So no matter which mutual fund or company you go through, you have the right to get this document called a prospectus. It will actually say what the fund will be invested in. So you will know if it's a risky fund or not so risky. There are energy funds and there are different types of funds, right? As I said, it's about 68 registered mutual funds. And what a mutual fund does is it may not be as high as a bond, but it won't be as risky, let's say, or may not even be high as stock. But it may be, let's say, a 2 point something percent. And if we go back to the banks, right, and the percent you're getting there, a mutual fund is something good to consider. It's a little more safer because managed by a fund manager. And as I said, the resources is a bit more diversified. So it's a good option for the persons to consider. Again, it's not just unit trust. Most of the banks in Trinidad and Tobago have mutual funds. So I believe FCB have Abercrombie Fund, Royal Bank have Roytrin. So there are different ones as well that you could do your research and see which option works for you. Yeah. And for time, I'm just going to move on quickly. So for those who are interested in asking about investing in the local stock market, well, the first step is you need to contact a registered broker-dealer. Consider the broker-dealer like the middleman, right? They do the buying and selling on your behalf. There are 8, I believe, registered brokerage houses. You can visit our website, www.ttsec.org.tt. You could also check the stock exchange website, and you will see a list of all the registered, again, brokerage houses, right? Once you choose which one to go with, and it's really about preference. And something I should also mention, there are broker fees, right? Every time you do a trade, meaning buying and selling, there is a brokerage fee attached to it, but it's amount, if you want to use that to decide which company to go with, they're all around the same fees, prices. So it's really, if I have to give a suggestion, it's really based on your convenience, which company is a bit more convenience for you. So once you determine which company you go with, step 2 is you open an investment account. Opening a brokerage account is similar to opening a bank account. They will want a bank statement, a job letter, proof of address, forms of ID. But once you contact the respective broker-dealer, they will give you the list of items needed to open your account. And then, as I said, you could do your research. You could, it's an excellent point and good timing too. I should raise them for this webinar. The budget day is coming up, right? And sometimes just listening to the news and the budgets could also guide your decisions in what type of investment you should do. If you know the direction the country is going to, or where the government, probably a big project that's coming up, that could also help. As I said, sometimes too, a lot of us have this thing that we need to have a finance degree or, to be the savvy investor. But just reading the newspapers, listening to world news, and of course, as I just said, our budget coming up on Monday, that might actually be good insights to, where one might be a good option to consider. Yeah, so and before I move on to the last part of the presentation, any questions on investing?
Yes, I am seeing some questions here. What is the difference between a share and a stock?
Well, we use the word interchangeably, but it's basically the same in terms of when I was referring to the stock markets. We use shares more, I guess, in terms of when we refer to like credit union and shares, again, as meaning you're part owner of a company. But stocks we refer to mainly in terms of the stock exchange, but I do use it interchangeably there. But it was in reference to the stock markets, I would say stocks.
Okay.
Next question.
Next question. How do you know when government bonds and IPOs are available for investors?
Sure. So as I said, they do a huge for the government bond, for example. I think it was the Ministry of Finance would have been promoting that. It was full spread in all the newspapers. It was on radio. It was on social media. It was on TV. So they do advertise it nationally on all the platforms, I would say. So it's really just kind of looking out for it. And maybe sometimes do any budget. They may also give a little insights and maybe one that may be coming up. So you could also use that as well.
Could one invest in US or international stock market with these brokers that you have listed?
Yes. I believe First Citizens brokerage is one of the few that allows for US, but you can contact them and they will guide you more appropriately.
Okay, next question. Do mutual funds have a service cost attached to it?
When you mean service cost, like if you're using a card, again, it may depend on the type of company you're going with. I think I heard Unit Trust have cards now that persons could use, which I feel personally to feed the purpose, because if you have investment product, you shouldn't be able to easily access it. As far as I know, no, you purchase the type of fund, you agree on the amount, and they're not supposed to, but they may be depending again on the type. There's 68 mutual funds, so I can't really say for all what it may be. Yeah.
Okay, that's it for now. I'm seeing a next message coming in. That's
I
one
agree.
minute.
Card defeats the purpose. Exactly. That's
Okay,
what I say too.
right,
As
yes.
I think right after school, I would have had a mutual fund, and I mean, I never took a card, and I still don't take cards for certain things. The purpose of it is to, again, if it's 3 years, you want to save towards something or investment, you shouldn't be able to easily access it. But again, everyone is different. For me, I don't like cash in hand. I find I would spend it. I more use my cards. But again, personal preference and what works for you.
Okay, another question. Can government bonds be used as tax refunds?
Well, that's an interesting question. I am not sure on that. So that's something we might have to check on. Could I start investing at 18? Yeah, so I should have mentioned that, sorry. It says start investing in mutual funds. You could actually be I think, yeah, as a teen. I think you could start investing mutual funds under 18, or actually you may need a parent to sign you up. But for the local stock market, you must be 18 years and over to open a brokerage account. Oh, someone is saying yes. Okay, so with the tax refunds. Again, I don't want to say the wrong thing if I'm not sure. So for that one, I would suggest probably contacting the ministry to confirm. Yeah, okay. So I know we have a little bit of time here, and I just have one more last part of the presentation. So we talk a lot about investing. We talk a lot about the TTSEC and it regulates on our role. Of course, there's also investor protection. So we would have gone through the actual registered types of investment products, but something that happened a lot during the pandemic and still very rampant as well in Trinidad and Tobago is scams. A lot of persons don't do the necessary checks. They get caught up in the quick schemes and quick ways to make money. So I just want to show this video, and then we'll talk a little bit about scams and how the commission's role in assisting in that.
Oh, the helicopter. Park the helicopter in properly. Alright, let me call you back. Yay, what's going on? Your name is Scam. Now, the fact that you're here, that means you start right. You want to change your life. And I can provide that for you. Now, it's simple. Everything in life is networking. Everything is networking. Or everything in life is networking. Right? So we have the better life. That involves me. That's me here. Right? All you need after you get me is you. Believe in yourself. 2 people. And watch the money roll in. This is where it is. Now, to start the class, is a down payment required?
Right, so it's 20,000 TT to start?
And if you have a car keys as well, we need to get around for some of our employees. Right, so you could organize that.
I think I'm good.
Financial freedom is where life is, you know.
Yeah, I think I'll...
Listen, sir, you don't want to change your life. Remain the way that you live in. Oh, the helicopter.
Sorry. So I actually like to say in that part, I like to say, run, Kyle, run. So for some of y'all who may know, Kyle is a local influencer, and the commission would have partnered with him, especially around a time where a lot of fraud was happening in environment. We thought it was a good way to get the message across. Now, we talked about 0.1% in the banks. We talked about 3% We talk about 4% interest rates. Now, obviously, a red flag should be if anyone comes at you and they're like 15% or doubling your money, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, right? We all say that. But yet many Trinbagonians are getting caught up in these scams and still are, right? So we do want to warn the public that there are unregistered broker-dealers. I would have shown you a list of the brokerage firms, but I should also mention that on our website, you could search our registrant tab and you could actually sort it by category into broker-dealers, and I will show you the list of all the persons that are registered with us. So definitely watch out for unregistered broker-dealers because